we have, I'm Noelle Loughran, and I am part of the marketing team here at Esri, and I will be the MC today for today's webinar. We have two great presenters with us. Shelby Hines will be doing demos and talking about the solutions we have for emergency management. And we also have Justin Ogden with us today that will share with you some training and some tools that you can use to get started. So without any further ado, I will push this right over to Shelby and she can get started.
Great. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Well?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to be presenting on this extremely important topic this morning. I'm going to be talking about ArcGIS solutions designed to help you be as prepared as possible for when disaster hits. So with location intelligence, map visualization, decision support, and information for the community. ArcGIS and GIS is an enabling technology that supports these patterns. So I'm going to be kind of clicking through a few different types of presentation materials here. I'm going to start at the emergency management industry page. I'm going to show a few slides to kind of lay the groundwork. And then after that, I'll be demoing some emergency management apps and demoing some solution configuration, as well as talking through some resources. And when I finish up, I think I'll be talking for about 40 or 45 minutes. I'm going to pass it over to Justin and he'll finish us up with some great training tips. So with that, I'm going to flip over to my web browser and, like I said, start at this emergency management operations industry page. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and take a look at what our objectives are, right, in the emergency management response space. So what are the goals that we're trying to achieve? The first is situation awareness. So what is the big picture in the community? How do we monitor activity in dynamic conditions and update incident data in real time, for example? That might be predicted or forecasted data or during the actual event as the event is unfolding in the community. Bringing in traffic and weather feeds, incorporating as real time as possible conditions that are happening in the community, and then tracking key indicators related to impacts. So I'm talking about road closures or shelter status, affected population, resources needed, the ability to track resources in near real time. As I kind of click through these capabilities on this page, you'll see that these couple bullets under what's included actually represent the solution or configuration that ArcGIS has to offer to sort of meet that need or meet that challenge. So in this case, we have two configurations. One is called the incident status dashboard, and the other is the operations response. So impact analysis. So this is, understanding impact. Who and what are being impacted? People and structures at risk, right? So community assets might be your critical infrastructure that, is threatened or might become inoperable based on a pending threat or hazard, or like I said, on a current event. And then ensuring staff prioritize response efforts effectively. So ensuring the right resources are in place when and where citizens need assistance. Operational briefs as a capability. So, bringing information for planning and operation to your command staff or your officials, maybe into the EOC to be able to provide the most up-to-date status and information on an event, and to provide the context to explain the situation that can help inform decision-making, resource needs, and looking at availability against your needs. And then public information is critically important, getting the right information out to people that need it in a timely in a timely manner. So that would be the authoritative and complete information that you can provide about your disaster, about the existing disaster and response, in an effort to keep folks out of harm's way, right? To evacuate when needed, or to stay away from unsafe areas. And then also to simplify, the idea, with the public information is to provide simple and accurate, actionable information for the public and maybe the media as well. Also, ArcGIS has the capability to support applications that go viral. So if there's an event where your website or your app is getting hit thousands of times a day, ArcGIS Online can support and scale to that type of demand. And then finally, collecting damage assessment. So the ability to rapidly deploy mobile applications for data collection in the field. Collector for ArcGIS, for example, enables you to collect data in a connected or a disconnected environment, and can contribute to your efficiency in your recovery, and also prevent delays in assembling information, maybe for federal or other funding requests. Field apps also let you track your field teams through the mobile device. So, that can help you maintain the safety of your field crew. So while I'm here on this page, I'm actually going to click the back button here, and I want to point out that Esri makes available a public safety webinar series. And you might just take note of this URL, or you can even Google Esri Public Safety Webinar Series to get to this page. And it is an awesome resource of webinars that are held on a very frequent basis. As you can see, you can register for each webinar with this button. And these past webinars are posted on this site, and this is a wealth of information to help you be as efficient as you can in your public safety. So please do explore this site and check out what type of resources you can use. So at this point, I'm going to flip back to my slide deck and talk through some of the high-level ArcGIS platform capabilities. The first is the ability to connect to data. So by that, I'm talking about assets, right? So your community assets, like your houses and your critical facilities, hospitals and schools, other infrastructure, maybe utilities in the community. I'm talking about hazard data, like floodplain boundaries. We have part of the ArcGIS Living Atlas is something we call a suite of services that we call Earth observation data. So actual live real-time feeds of weather or watches or traffic. You can also bring in traffic data through Waze. Waze makes available data to folks that participate in something called the Connected Citizens Program, and makes it very easy to bring in a web service that shows Waze closures and jams, traffic jams. You can bring in your incident management system data. So if you're using WebEOC, for example, the WebEOC has an extension to their application. It's called the ArcGIS extension. And you can have a one-to-one sync between a WebEOC board and an ArcGIS web service. And it's actually a bi-directional sync, so that if that data is edited on the WebEOC side, for example, those edits will be reflected in the ArcGIS feature service, and vice versa. Also data related to pre-disaster risk assessment, right? To the ability to study threats based on soils or slopes or vegetation. So the idea is that you don't have to create new data to leverage what already exists. You can use the ArcGIS platform to bring together these existing data types. And once the data is mashed up, you will improve your situational awareness 100-fold, right? So WebGIS and GIS lets you get the most out of your data and make actionable information out of your data. You know, you can build insight and understanding of things like hotspots or areas of concern, proximity of a hazard to people and property, and you know, which helps drive decision making in terms of where resources are needed or how to make the next move in a dynamic situation. And you have the ability to share via apps. Okay, so apps and templates are designed to meet specific needs and bring information and capabilities to people or teams or departments, citizens, neighboring jurisdictions or stakeholders, to provide them the focused applications specific to their need. There's no coding required to configure these apps. So kind of starting from the left, we have field apps that let you do a damage assessment collection in the field. Like I had mentioned earlier, connected or disconnected. We have business apps that let you actually bring in demographic data, maybe to do analysis pre-disaster on vulnerable populations, for example. Crowdsourcing apps, you can build an app to collect information from the public about the status of an event. Galleries let you actually organize these apps. You can organize them by theme, and you can kind of create a destination for people that are supporting an event. App builders, you'll see as I start to demo some of these apps, a lot of them are built on an app builder called Web App Builder, which is a capability that comes as part of your portal. Story maps, you'll see a configuration of story maps in the incident briefing book, are a great way to tell a story and bring together different mediums of information. So interactive maps and text and graphics and videos and links out to other resources. And then dashboards are so awesome for monitoring the status of a workflow or an event that's unfolding in real time. So the portal that you see in the middle of this slide, the portal is your platform, or you can consider it a destination for internal staff, and you can also make the homepage of your portal public facing to make it a destination for external users as well. And when I say portal, I'm talking about either ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. ArcGIS Online is software as a service. So it is hosted by Esri and it's available through a browser in the cloud. ArcGIS Enterprise is a stack of software components that has ArcGIS Server at its core that is deployed and maintained on your own infrastructure and creates a WebGIS in your own infrastructure. Part of ArcGIS Enterprise is a component called Portal for ArcGIS. Now, ArcGIS Online and Portal for ArcGIS have a very similar look and feel, and it's here that you access all of these apps. So as a user of the system, you log into your portal with a user account, right? And like I said, this portal is where you access the apps. It's where you manage your data and your maps and your apps and your users and their permissions and access to the various content in your portal. There's a concept called groups in ArcGIS. Groups are a way to connect users with content so that not everybody needs to be able to see every app, for example, across a portal. And then to take this a step further, Esri offers what we call solutions. And solutions are configurations of those core apps that we saw on the last slide. Solutions are, like I said, configurations, and they're designed to meet a very specific business need. And they're organized by these domains or industries, as you can see. And we have a very well built out suite of emergency management solutions. We'll be digging into a handful of them today. Solutions are part of the ArcGIS platform. You have access to them if you have a user account in ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS. Solutions are supported so that you can call Esri Tech Support for help with deploying or maintaining solutions. And they're also updated on a very frequent basis. So with ArcGIS Online being a SaaS software as a service, you know, you don't need to take any steps to realize those updates to the solution. So the next time you open the browser, you'll see some new feature or some improved workflow. A lot of times solutions will work together as a system, and you'll see an example of that today. So let's drill in a little bit. Here are the list of emergency management solutions. I'm going to be focusing on the solutions that are circled in red circles, and these are on the response side, right? And I'm not going to talk through them right now because I'm going to show them live. I also want to point out on the left-hand side, we have solutions for mitigation planning, for capturing and organizing information to support risk assessments that then inform mitigation strategies, right? I also want to point out, while we're talking about mitigation, on the right-hand side, you'll see some solutions for crowdsourcing. And as part of the mitigation planning process, you have a requirement to collect public comment and to coordinate with stakeholders. And there is a lot of potential in these apps to streamline those workflows and make it easier for people to comment and participate in the planning process. And then the final point I wanted to make about mitigation is you know, if you're familiar with story maps, or once you see some examples of story maps, I really encourage you to think about building a risk assessment for a mitigation plan into a story map. It'll bring your mitigation plan, you know, up off the shelf and bring your data and your analysis to life. Okay, the final slide I have is just a quick note on Esri resources. The first bullet here speaks to an Esri solution offering that if you're interested in learning more details about, you can talk to your Esri account manager. But this is a Esri professional services engagement. It's a 5-day on-site engagement that is support for setup and configuration of 7 of the apps in the emergency management offering. And I'm going to be showing those apps today. And those 7 apps meet those capabilities that I started the hour describing. This would be your fastest way to achieving value in your emergency management domain from ArcGIS. And this would include technical knowledge transfer to your staff for the operation and maintenance of the app. So like I said, Esri Professional Services would come out on site and actually wire up and configure 7 of the emergency management apps for you. In fact, they're included in these circles. So again, let us know if you'd like to learn more about that. Second bullet is the solutions deployment tool. So you can also deploy these solutions yourself. And I'll show an example of using that solutions deployment tool. That is an add-on to ArcGIS Pro. And so, you know, between those 2 first bullets, the first one would be have Esri build it for me. The second one would be a DIY, right? A do-it-yourself approach, where you can sort of chip away at deploying these solutions and start with the one that is the low-hanging fruit or the one that you need the most, right? Okay, the Esri Disaster Response Program, if you weren't aware, Esri provides no-cost support to Esri customers during an emergency. If your capacity is exceeded during an emergency, you can reach out to the Esri Disaster Response Program. And if your software has been taken out by the emergency, for example, we will replace it and even scale it further to support more named users, for example, for staff that are coming on site to support. With the DRP, you have access to premium tech support. So your mission critical solutions need to be up and running. And so this will give you a direct line into premium tech support for maintaining those apps, and that's 24/7. The DRP also offers implementation support for some apps and capabilities, and also support with access to data sets. So you know, the DRP is not intended to be a stopgap for your own preparedness, but it is there if you are really caught in a time of need. And so the lessons that Esri has learned from DRP engagements has really informed the solutions that they have built for the emergency management industry. A few more resources that I threw up there, solutions.arcgis.com. We're going to look at that site, and that's where you find all the solutions that we're talking about. I already mentioned the public safety webinar series. Esri training is an incredible resource, and you're going to hear a bit more about that from Justin in a bit. Learn ArcGIS is a resource that provides bite-sized, hands-on lessons, and it provides the data and walks you through how to use different capabilities and apps in the ArcGIS platform. So I really recommend checking out the Learn ArcGIS site. It's an incredible resource to either get started or to continue to develop your skills. And then I threw on YouTube videos. For example, all of the tech sessions from User Conference of 2018 are available on YouTube. I believe it's 50-some 1-hour tech sessions that are an awesome resource for learning about a particular aspect of the ArcGIS platform. Okay, next place I'm going to go is, this is actually a configuration of ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is your modern desktop application. If you're using ArcMap now, you have an ArcGIS desktop license, and that means you have access to both ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro. Eventually, ArcMap will be going away. Now you have a handful of years before that's going to happen, but all of the development at Esri in the desktop space is going into Pro. So I highly recommend that you install it on your machine. You can run it side by side with ArcMap, and you start to poke around and get familiar and start to use it for your workflows. It's really an amazing application. So the solutions that I referenced earlier, they're both configurations of web apps, and they can be configurations of desktop. So this solution is called Emergency Management Maps, and like I said, it's a configuration of an ArcGIS Pro project designed for emergency management or public safety staff to consolidate and share data and maps via the web or paper maps. So it's not required that you bring your data into this information model to use the other web apps, but it's a great way to get started, pushing data sets into an existing data layers. So you can see we've got operational data layers as part of the table of contents here. We have a series of maps and accompanying layouts. Okay, let's go ahead and open one of these layouts just to take a look at that transportation map layout. The symbology that comes with this solution follow NAPSG, National Alliance of Public Safety GIS guidelines. And you can see this is a nice layout with with the surround elements already built in. The last thing I want to point out in this solution is a series of tasks, and tasks are a way to standardize or build a repeatable workflow. Okay, so this solution has a few tasks built into it. And one of them is to create an incident map book. I'm not actually going to step through this right now, but you can choose the maps that you want to include into a PDF document. And this task will step you through doing that, and then we'll actually export your data into a PDF. This solution comes with sample data from the city of Baltimore, just to help you sort of orient yourself and get comfortable with what products are available. But these tasks, again, the first task is to actually delete that sample data out of the layers. So that leaves you with empty feature classes. The next task then is to append your data to those feature classes. So to actually add your data into the feature classes. And then from there, I'm going to leave that one. Okay, so again, not required to get started this way, but is a helpful information model that can feed into these subsequent apps if you need it. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show is called the Incident Status Dashboard. This is a configuration of operations dashboard. This is an interactive map, and this one is designed to quickly share insights with leadership to support decision making as an event unfolds. You can have this up in an EOC, for example. So as I just clicked on a road closure, and I can tell that this data, based on its pop-up, and you can see this little orange text in the upper right, this road closure is coming in from WebEOC. So it's leveraging that ArcGIS extension for WebEOC that I mentioned earlier. So again, the ability to monitor key indicators and conditions in real time. The second solution here is called the Situation Awareness Viewer. And this one is designed, again, for emergency management or EOC staff or leadership to have a common operational data view of the potential impact of a forecasted threat or of a current threat. So the way that this solution works is you can see that I've got community asset or critical infrastructure in my map. And I open up the situational awareness widget, and I need to define my area of interest. And I can do that either by dropping a point, line, or polygon onto the map and giving it a buffer, or I can select an existing boundary on the map. In this case, it's a floodplain boundary. And I'm going to click the More Options 3 dots here on the bottom of my pop-up and set that as my location. I can add a buffer around that, and it will draw a buffer. Actually, I'm going to take the buffer off in this case and redefine my area as just the floodplain boundary. And what it's done is it's gone out and done an intersection with those community assets within the floodplain boundary. And then on these tabs along this bottom ribbon, I can see summaries of, in this case, demographics within that floodplain. This is pulling from Esri demographic data. I can see the assistance requests that have come in and what type of requests. I can see 2 hospitals that are within that boundary, as well as schools with a summary of with a sum of the number of students within those schools. I can see bridges affected and road closures. And as I've been clicking through these categories, you might notice this button here on the left. And this button lets me export those facilities, in this case hospitals, that are within my hazard boundary. And it pulls with it all the attributes associated with those hospitals. I also want to point out that I can create a report based on that quick situational awareness analysis. And this report is summarizing the demographics. It's summarizing all of the data that returned with my situational awareness analysis. And then also draws a map at the top of my PDF. Now I can configure this PDF to include my own logo, and obviously this is the title I just gave it. I have a bit more configuration options within this report too. So a really nice way to communicate the status of an event. Okay, the next one is the incident briefing book. So this one is designed for staff to be able to provide briefings to stakeholders, right, or to leadership. And it's interactive map based. So this is a configuration of a story map journal and uses operational data to update on the status of an event. So it's a framework that enables you to cover important information and aspects about an event. And the first few pages here show how this particular flood event has unfolded. And you can see that, there are some key statistics, on the left-hand side of this scrolling story map. And these maps are actually, they're actually generated from the situational awareness solution. This button right now is grayed out just because this is an Esri demo that I'm not able to get to this button. But if you deploy the solution on your own, you would have access to create what's called a snapshot. And the snapshot actually creates a new web map and pulls all those data layers that are intersecting your area of interest or your hazard area. And that's what these are. These are the snapshots from your situational awareness viewer. And then as I continue to scroll, important aspects of the disaster are highlighted, including demographics and transportation, emergency facilities, and you can see I can embed graphs and charts and different types of mediums into this story map. These apps are all configurable, so once they're deployed, you can open up their edit mode, and you can really use these as a template and a starting point, and you can build them, to meet your needs on the ground. Okay, next one is the public information map, and this one lets me kind of zoom into these different areas of interest. In this case, we're looking at Maryland, to look at things like incident points or incident lines, areas, stream gauges, and various weather and warnings. Another one for the public would be the road closures app. So with this one, I can come in, this is an edit widget. This wouldn't be public facing because I can come in and actually, as emergency management or maybe public works or first responder, I can actually draw a road closure onto the map and give it attributes to populate that data layer. Now, you can also make a version of this data public facing. You might build it into this public information app, for example. Or you could take this particular edit widget out of the app and make this app public facing. Okay, so you have a lot of flexibility with the apps. Another one is the shelter locator. So this is the state of Maryland. I can come in and drop a point. If I live right here and I need to know where my closest shelter is, this is going to go out and draw a buffer around the point that I just dropped, and I have control over how big that buffer is. And it's going to tell me the open shelters that land within that buffer. And then it's going to give me information about that particular shelter and even route me to it from my location. I also want to make the point here that I could have symbolized this data, for example, on the shelter status, so whether it was open or closed. Okay, the next one is damage assessment. And this one has two parts. The part we're looking at right now is a configuration of operations dashboard that is summarizing the damage assessments that are coming in from the field. The second component to it is a configuration of collector for ArcGIS, which is a mobile app that's part of ArcGIS Online. So collector runs on your phone or tablet and is a download from your app store. And then you would log into the app with your ArcGIS user account. And as damage is being assessed and being submitted through that app, it's actually populating this dashboard. You can see along the bottom, I've got 3 different tabs representing different types of facilities across my community. Okay, so where do I find all these solutions? I mentioned earlier solutions.arcgis.com. And I recommend you check this site out. As I scroll down, you can see I've got different categories of solutions here. I'm going to click on the emergency management, and emergency management solutions are organized really by phases of the emergency management cycle. So if I click into the response phase, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go straight to identify property damage. And there are 2 solutions within that category, and one of them is the damage assessment solution that we just looked at. Many of these have a view application button, and that's exactly the demos that I've been showing you for the last 5 or 6 tabs there. But I also wanted to point out each one has a web page that explains the intent of the solution. It explains what is required to deploy the solution, what you get when you deploy the solution, and then what's new with various releases of that solution. Okay, so next place I'm going to go is the Highfield Open Data site, and for the demo that I'm going to show you in a couple minutes here, I pulled 2 data sets from Highfield, and this, by the way, is an Esri open data site. Highfield is, if you're not familiar, is a committee with representation from DHS and NGA and DOI, USGS, federal agencies, and others, that was established to build and maintain a common foundation of homeland infrastructure data to be used for visualization and analysis. So this is a fantastic place to get started if you don't have data sets already. And I'll show you that data. So that's where I'm going to go right now. I'm going to go to a different pro project. And I've chosen some Navajo, the Navajo reservation out here in our region. I'm sitting in Denver right now. And what I did was I pulled public schools and hospitals from that Highfield open data site. Okay, and then I narrowed it down to that Navajo area with some surrounding area. So I did that by doing a selection and then, and then data export of those features. Okay, so there's that data. I also want to point out the solutions deployment tool. this is an add-on to ArcGIS Pro, and I talked about it as being kind of the DIY approach for deploying and configuring your own solutions. This is another series of tasks. The first step is to sign into your ArcGIS organization. And I've done that here on the upper right. So I am logged into an ArcGIS Online org that's called County and Regional Government. The second step is to deploy a solution. So the solutions that you are about to see in this list are all of the solutions that are available at solutions.arcgis.com. So you can see damage assessment right here. The one we're going to focus on is situational awareness. And to deploy it, I would highlight this solution and click deploy. I'm not going to do it right now because it takes a few minutes. But what that actually does is it publishes the feature layers, the web map, and it pulls the apps that you need to actually build out that solution. So I'm going to go back to my browser and I'm going to pull out this tab. And this is my ArcGIS Online organization. Before we started the call today, I deployed that situation awareness viewer solution. Okay, so you can see that the actual app is its own item in my content of my ArcGIS Online org. The web map is a separate item, and then each of the feature layers, some of these are actually multi-layer services, were published up to ArcGIS Online. So let's go ahead and view that application as it is right now. So you can see my situation awareness widget is there, but I don't have any data yet. You know, it doesn't know where I'm focusing. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is open up the web map. So the web map is always the building block to an app. So that you load your data into the web map and you configure your symbology and your pop-ups in your web map. Okay, so I'm going to go back to ArcGIS Pro. And the next couple steps of my solution deployment tool are actually to configure the solution. The third step here is it lets you actually configure fields and domains so that if you want to remove or add a field in those feature layers that now exist in ArcGIS Online, you can do it from this task, which is really powerful. You can modify domains or drop down lists here too. But what I'm going to show is the ability to load your data into that solution. So in this case, I'm going to load my Navajo schools and I'm going to add them. And this is the append tool, okay? So the tool is actually built in as a step in my tasks. My target data set, I'm going to navigate to my ArcGIS Online content. And in this reference facilities service are my schools layer. So I'm going to point to that schools layer. Okay, now what I'm going to do here on the bottom is I'm going to field map into that layer because my attribute names are a little bit different. So I'm going to field map just a couple attributes in. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to find my full address. And you can see that these are my target fields. The fields that are already black have already found their matching field. So my feature class that's stored locally in my geodatabase had the same name for the field as the feature layer that lives in ArcGIS Online. And I'm just going to field map a couple more. So I'm going to say for the full address, I want to push that. I want to push this address field into this full address field. I'm going to add that selected. And the other one I'm going to push in is my number of students from the enrollment field. So I'll add that selected. And I'm going to go ahead and press run. And while that append tool is running, I'm going to come back to ArcGIS Online and do a bit of configuration on my web map. So let's see. I'm going to zoom into my area of interest. I'm going to turn, oh, you know, I'm going to skip that because I'm running short on time here. The other thing I'm going to point out quickly is that I have the ability to add data from the Living Atlas directly into my web map. And in this case, I'm going to search for drought data. And I'm going to bring in a USA drought intensity layer. And again, this is going to show up in my situational awareness app ultimately, because I'm now configuring the map. I'm going to first give this a transparency. And then I just wanted to point out the metadata for this particular Earth observations layer. So this is coming from the US Drought Monitor and is updated every Thursday. Okay, so I'm going to click Save on this map. And let's go ahead and check our progress on loading our data from the Solutions Deployment tool. It's coming along. So I'm going to save that again. And now when I refresh my app, you can see that I'm zoomed to my area of interest, and there's that Earth observation data that I just added in. So hopefully, in just a minute, we'll be able to see some of this data coming through. Sometimes you can sort of see it start to populate into the web map. I'll show you one other thing while we're waiting. Like I said before, the web app is actually an item in your content. And right now, you can see this little lock. And that means that I have not shared the app with anybody. I can select this app, and it's under this share button that I have the ability to share it publicly, or I can share it across my organization, or I can just share it with a specific group and the members of that group. Still waiting for my schools to come through. This is taking longer than it did when I tried it earlier. You know, Justin, why don't I hand it over to you at this point, and maybe we can check back on the app after you're done with your piece. So with that, folks, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to transfer to Justin, and let's check back with the app after his piece.
All right, thank you for that, Shelby. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, so thanks for walking us through some of those solutions that are at our fingertips to leverage. So as your training consultant, I believe a highly engaged workforce is one of the keys to getting the most value out of your technology. So really where I want to finish is some resources to really master some of these concepts and immediately apply them in your tribe for a greater return on your investment in our technology overall. So a lot of the conversation today, we're talking about preparing for, responding to, and recovering from emergencies. And recently, what we experienced here in the Carolinas was Hurricane Florence. So a lot of citizens are asking about their property, about evacuation, support resources, and kind of this question of what's the response from their local government. So the obvious question is kind of, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? So the obvious answer here is obviously Ghostbusters. But I hope the next answer would be, and I'll unpack this a little bit, I hope the next answer would be GIS. So when disaster strikes, that you have a seat at that table before, during, and after those emergencies, so that when your constituents are asking for the evacuation routes, they're asking for access to services, you have these tools, these solutions right at the fingertips in order to improve response times, make better decisions, and really save lives in the end. One of the challenges that I see really across the industry is too often GIS and a lot of the expertise we bring is an afterthought in these scenarios. So think about, where is your seat at the table, and are you effectively talking with the different departments within your organization that are preparing for these different events? And I think there's a better way out there. You've probably seen some of our videos in local government. We talk a lot about Pinellas County in Florida. And so as we think about their seat at the table, their GIS manager is at the middle of a lot of these meetings with a real-time operations dashboard that shall be highlighted. Is a great way to captivate some of those decision makers, department leaders, and other leaders in your organization, so that they have access to what's happening in real time out in the field. The next question I want to ask is, how smart is your organization's operational picture, and how are you sharing, how are you putting these tools into the hands of department users when things are hitting the fan? So when the hurricane hits, what tools are being used in the field by your organization? And I want to present two scenarios. The first one is poor Sean, and I was introduced to Sean 2 weekends ago. On Saturday, was at home, tucked away with my family, staying out of the wind and the rain. I flip on the local media, and here is poor Sean holding a digital map up against one of the trucks. This was one of the counties on the East Coast that was severely hit by rain. And I mean, you can see Sean's grimace on his face. He's thinking, man, how did I get stuck with this task? If only we had some sort of a digital tool that I could use in place of this paper map. And others are saying, Sean, don't let the paper map get wet. But all kidding aside, you have those tools and they're at your fingertips, and your responsibility and your opportunity is to take them to the first responders and equip them with smarter technology. I want to share a recent use case. This was from last year. Last year's hurricane hitting the city of Key West. So in the hours leading up to the landfall of Hurricane Irma on the Florida Keys, what the GIS administrator really realized, we need a better way of preparing for the hurricane that's going to hit. And sure enough, within the next 24 hours, over 5,000 of the area's 25,000 full-time residents were evacuated. They had nearly 600 signs that were downright lost in the storm, over 10,000 downed trees. And they realized very quickly there was no way to keep up with the current way that they had been doing it, which up to that point was a lot of pen and paper. So similar to what Shelby showed us, I've highlighted some of the solutions here. They utilized Collector for ArcGIS on phones and tablets in the field. They integrated that with an operations dashboard, and the result was being able to provide city managers and other decision makers a tally of the damage in real time, as well as a real-time feed of a lot of the progress of the data collection teams. And it was really interesting as this was unfolding. Being a member of the public, I could check their website and I could view the web map, and I could see the attached photos of downed trees, of boats, and I could see the local government responding to this crisis. So two final resources that I want to share for how you can implement these immediately and realize this value within your tribal organization. The first one is this 2-day instructor-led training course. I've highlighted it before. Our instructor-led training is designed for you to master these concepts and implement them immediately and share them with others, all around field data collection and management. So you'll create web apps, you'll utilize some of our off-the-shelf solutions, you'll look into managing field workforce assignments and create navigation map, and at the end, you'll wrap it up with an operations dashboard. And I'll share the link to that, go.esri.com/FIDA4. You can see upcoming offerings of that 2-day course. It's been one of our most popular instructor-led training courses, and I've had a number of organizations share with me how much it helped them move forward and equip other departments with these tools. And the last resource I wanted to share, Shelby highlighted this earlier, was the Learn ArcGIS tutorial page. So we have a specific activity. It's a 1-hour activity with a few sample exercises within it, all about collecting hurricane damage assessments. So you'll deploy a solution in ArcGIS Pro to collect damage assessments. You'll build surveys in Survey 123 and a web map, and you'll pull all that together in a real-time operations dashboard. So two great resources that you can utilize immediately and really deploy some of these solutions to save time, improve decision-making, and lives within your organizations. And thanks for your time, everyone. I've got my contact information here to continue the conversation around these resources. And with that, I will hand it back to Shelby and Noel.
Awesome. Justin, can you make me the presenter at this point? Awesome. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so you can see that my school's feature layer populated from my feature class in ArcGIS Pro through the append tool in my solutions deployment tool. So we're currently looking at the web map. And then the final thing I have to show you is the actual app that is honoring the configuration of the web map, like I had mentioned, and we can see schools. Now I can drill into a particular area and pop open my situational awareness widget and define my area of interest or my hazard boundary. In this case, I'm going to drop a point and I'll put maybe a 20-mile buffer around it. Maybe this is a chemical spill or a transportation accident, for example. And you can see that it's, I also added hospitals. You can see that it's pulled the schools within this buffer. So it's done the intersection, and it looks like the number of students can't quite be accurate there. There must be something going on with that data. I've also got one hospital within that area. So, so there is your situational awareness viewer in action. And with that, I'm finished with the content that I had. Noel, I don't know if you had any final comments or if there have been any questions that have come in.
Yeah, I will wrap up the webinar now, seeing as we are very close to time. And there were a couple of questions that came in, but we'll respond to those by email. And just a couple of resources that we wanted to share really quick with you as soon as they pop up on that screen. There they are. So thank you for joining us today. A couple of things that were touched on or highlighted today and some links to those. So Shelby mentioned earlier that there's a public safety webinar series. If you go to go.esri.com/EM-webinars4, you'll be able to easily access those and any other resources that Esri's public safety team has posted for our users. Also, to complement what Justin provided, the Esri Public Safety team also has a curated list of ArcGIS courses for public safety organizations. There are free trainings in there. There's a variety of things. So if you have time, we recommend you going to take a look at that. And that is at go.esri.com/emtraining4. We also have a couple of Esri tribal government things that we'd like to point out. So first, this is the end of our tribal government webinar series for 2018. If you want to go back and review anything that we've done previously this year or even last year, we encourage you to go to this site, go.esri.com/webinar2018, and you can view any of the previous webinars we've done this year. You can also use that site to see what we have planned in 2019 or the rest of this year. We also will be at a couple of conferences, and we have another event for you that we'd like to remind you of. But in November, we will be at the National Tribal GIS Conference. Esri will be providing a hands-on ArcGIS Pro training for all of the attendees. So if you will be there, we'd love to see you at that training. We will also be at TribalNet, and we have a presentation on drones, and that will be held on Wednesday, the 7th of November at 9:45 a.m. So if you're going to that, we'd love to have you check out that agenda and make sure to see us at the drones session. And then finally, we will be doing a Tribal Story Map Challenge again in 2019. Information and details will begin to be shared with everyone at the end of November. So if you can always visit go.esri.com/2019challenge4, and you can see information from previous challenges, you can see entries, and then also if you check back in November, you'll start seeing some information about how you can enter or participate in the 2019 challenge. And with that, we are at time. So again, we'll answer any questions through email after the webinar is over. And we do have one question at the end of this webinar, so when we close this out, you will get a pop-up window, and we'd love to receive some information from you. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.